Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Welcome, everybody, to Office Hours here on hosting.com's Agency Success. So glad you're all here today. My name is Nathan Ingram. I am the agency trainer here with Agency Success. And every Thursday, we open the doors to the virtual office and let you come in and ask whatever questions you would like to ask. Always a lot of fun and a lot of head scratchers that tend to come through here. So we'll do our best to get some questions answered, or at least a discussion started around them. So wonderful to have everybody here. Let me just direct you again to the link bundle that is waiting on you there in the chat. If you're just joining us, the links are there for upcoming live streams, the replays for both Agency Success live streams and office hours, as well as links to downloads and all those things. So that's all waiting on you there. Also, we currently have, looks like 5 questions in the queue today. So if you would like to ask a question, you can do so using the link in the chat. Now, as always, throughout the week, if you have a question you want to ask, you don't have to wait for office hours to do that. Right here to wpnathan.com and click on the big green Ask a Question button there at the top. And that will take you to the form where you can ask your question at any point, and we'll get to it generally in the order that we receive them when office hours begins. So let's start with a couple of WordPress news-related items. Not a lot of WordPress news this week, other than have you been enjoying WordPress Accessibility Day? Anybody been taking part in those live streams? It is starting to wrap up, or it has already ended. 24 hours of constant broadcasts all about accessibility topics. It's always a great event, and they will have replays of all those things up. Here is the link to join or grab the replays there, 2025.wpaccessibility.day. So that is just wrapping up. Also, a few other things going on. If I can find all the windows that are open here. There's been a refiling in the WP Engine versus Automatic lawsuit. As you may or may not recall, earlier, maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago, there was a kickback from the court on several of WP Engine's claims. Some were dismissed outright, some were dismissed, allowing WP Engine to refile those, and they have. And so there's a great article about this on the repository if you're following along with this recent unpleasantness in WordPress. I'm not sharing any information on the screen just yet, but the links are there in the chat if you would like to view this article on the repository. Most interestingly to me, they have refiled with additional evidence some of the copyright infringement or the copyright claims, as well as the claims surrounding the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act related to the takeover of the ACF plugin. So that's a big deal. So we'll have to see how that one lands. But all of that is out there. You can, well, if you really want some things to read, you can go to that PDF, and WP Engine has posted the full legal filing. It's 175 pages long. So if you need to fall asleep, the link is there in the chat to read exactly what they're talking about. So it's still going to be a long time before this thing resolves. Discovery is supposed to close next month, but the jury trial is not scheduled to happen until February of 2027. So still, a year and a half away from even the beginnings of what might be a resolution for this. So we'll have to see. If it actually goes to a jury trial, that will be very interesting. Let's see. Yeah, question in the chat about FluentCart. Have I seen the news about FluentCart? And I have. I generally like just about everything the Fluent team has done. We did invest in Fluent Communities when it came out. Let's just pull this up here. FluentCart launched this week, and they do have an early bird lifetime deal out. It seems to be pretty darn good. I took a look at the demo and played around with it a bit. It's really smooth. Of course, I mean, at this point, it's so hard to know because whatever they show you in the actual hands-on demo is going to work well. That's because that's why they've given you a demo, right? So can I demo it here? Yes. And if I had thought about that, I would have had the link up already. Let me see if I can find the actual link. It's an emailed link. FluentCart. One moment. And I believe we can go. Maybe not. So there's the deal. It is not inexpensive, but for what you're getting, it's pretty good. I'm trying to find the demo link. And I don't know that I have that here. Sorry about that. I have gotten into the demo, and I can't remember how I did it. I'll try one more quick search. Here it is. All right, here we are on the back end. So here's FluentCart. It's a nice UI, as you would expect from the FluentCart team, or the the WP Managed Ninja team that makes all the Fluent things. I haven't seen really anything bad that they've created. They're a really good dev team. The back end is pretty straightforward. It's definitely fast. Of course, there aren't a lot of orders here. It supports digital products as well as shipped products. However, there's not a way at this point to connect to that I've found to connect to an external API like USPS or UPS or FedEx or other, insert your favorite shipping company here to get live rates. It's all like a flat rate shipping or a table rate, that sort of thing. But it is pretty straightforward. Why would you want to use an alternative to WooCommerce? Well, it does have some things built in that WooCommerce doesn't, like subscriptions are built in. And because it coordinates with things like Fluent, Fluent CRM and so forth, you can do really interesting things with that, like on a membership site level. So there are some really good reasons to do this or to move toward FluentCart. The store also looks nice. Here's the demo. We'll just take a look at this. So look at that. Really nice variations in the way they do those things. And if I go out to buy now, the checkout process is pretty nice. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a simple checkout process. So it looks to be pretty well done. You'd obviously want to research it a bit, but seems like a really good product. Yeah, Woo. Melanie says anything would be a relief from using Woo, and Woo is Woo, right? It is a very weighty plugin that works really well, but can also be a gigantic pain. So, yeah, give it a shot, right? I mean, it's a big investment. I have not purchased it. Not to say that I won't, but I have not purchased it. All right. Let us get into some questions, shall we? There are still, we're up to 8 questions in the queue. So if you want to get a question in, the link to do so is there in the chat. I will mention just quickly, if I can get the tab to come up here. My goodness. We do have a new live stream added for November the 4th. The referral engine. So this is a live stream that I've just added about attracting better clients without selling. And we're going to talk in this live stream about referral marketing and intentional referral marketing. It's really how I've built my business around building networks of referrals. And so that's coming up, just added. It'll be on November the 4th at our regular time. So check that out if you have not yet already. There's also coming up on the 22nd, Ali Feldman, the head of global sales for hosting.com, is going to talk about agency retainers and a strategy to grow your business around a retainer structure. That's coming up again on October 22nd. So that should be a good one. Ali is a very smart person. And I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say about this. All right. So let's get to our first question once I get all my windows moved around. And this is from Beth Livingston. All right, Beth asks, is redirection still your plugin of choice for redirect? And the answer to that question is yes. So the redirection plugin we're talking about is this one, the redirection plugin by John Godley. It is the kind of the OG redirections plugin around. There was a period for like 6 months about 8 years ago where this plugin got a little flaky, but I've been using this plugin for probably 15 years and it is solid as a rock. It is excellent. It gives you logging if you want it. It lets you monitor 404 errors. It imports and exports. It's just the simplest way to do it. Something else that it does that many of the other ones don't is that you can actually, here. So you can actually use regex, regular expressions, in your redirect if you want to. Like if you understand the Klingon, it looks like Klingon when you see these regex statements. If you can understand that, or literally have your favorite AI tool generate a regular expression for you, you can bulk redirect right here in the redirection plugin using a regular expression. It's super, super powerful. So it's been around forever. Very, very highly recommended. It's lightweight. It doesn't slow anything down. The other thing that's nice is that you do get some basic analytics here. So if I ever make a QR code for something, I'll usually use the redirection plugin so make the QR code as a redirect on the site for two reasons. First, if you need to change that link later, you can do it without having to change the QR code that may be out there already or printed or whatever. You can just change the URL that redirects to. Also, you get a basic, just right here in the plugin, oh, this link has been hit 82 times. So you get just basic analytics. It's not, you could get more information from a legit analytics plugin or your favorite analytics platform, but it's just a counter of how many times it's been accessed, which is pretty helpful. So anyway, any other questions about that? Yes. The redirection plugin by John Godley is the way to go. And it's right here. Plugin/redirection. I'll drop that in the chat for anybody that wants it. Good stuff. All righty. Next up is also Beth. All right. Do you ever use a plugin to organize the media library into folders? If so, which one? Great question. The answer is yes. And there's a few options that are out there. A good free one is called Filebird. I believe that's what it's called. Let's just double check that. This one's been around for a little while. Yes, the Filebird. So it's from a Ninja team, not the Fluent Ninja, WP managed Ninja. There's a bunch of ninjas out there. This one's pretty good. The free version works just fine. There are a number of others. I see Happy Files coming up in the chat. Happy Files has been a long time recommendation for a lot of folks. It is no longer in the WordPress plugin directory at all, unless they've just recently changed that. Let's just check. They had some issue with the WordPress plugin team, and it was removed from, no, it's not there. It was removed from the plugin directory, I think, for a security thing, and they just did never put it back in there. So I don't know what's going on. It is a premium plugin, and it works well. Now, it hasn't been updated in a long time, from what I understand. I don't use Happy Files. I just never have. It hasn't been updated in a while. Not that that is necessarily critical, because its core functionality hasn't changed. There hasn't been a need. It just kind of works, which is fine. And it does work. There's a number of folks mentioning it there in the chat, and you're using it now, right? And it works fine. So The other thing to look at and what we normally use now is the admin site enhancements tool. So admin site enhancements, this one, 8wpase.com. I did buy this. I think it's worth it. I think they still have a lifetime deal. Yeah, they do. So yeah, it's a little pricey at lifetime, but it does so many things. Like it cut down the number of plugins in our base stack significantly because everything is built into this plugin along with folders. So let's go to features and see if we can find um, media categories, which basically works like folders, right? So you can set all this up over here. It works really nicely. Yeah. Now it doesn't do anything on the front end. This is just for back end organization. So yeah, we like this a lot. And it's a big thumbs up for ASE. I've had numerous conversations with the plugin developer and it just works great. Oh, Beth, what other plugins does it replace? Well, if you take a look at all that it does here, I mean, just to start off with, the admin columns plugin, it does that. There's just so many. You can scroll down, code snippets manager, although I'd still like Fluent Snippets better. Login page customizer. It'll add CAPTCHAs. It has a basic form builder, although this does not replace Gravity Forms, like even sort of for us. And so many more things. We use it for password protection for sites. It does so many things. Just take a look at the feature set and you'll see all of the things it could replace. All right. So moving right along to Vern. Jamie, could it replace CodeBox? Yes, but as a code snippets manager, I would still recommend Fluent Snippets. And we've talked about that a bit. Simply, we actually unpacked that a lot last week. I think, was it last week? I think so, during office hours, because the Fluent Snippets plugin actually stores those snippets as PHP files. And it's much, much better. Like that's a more efficient way to run code snippets. So we don't use the code snippets part of ASE, but we could. Does it replace Gravity Forms? It has a basic form builder, but Gravity Forms is just one of those things that we're not going to get away from. I don't know what the accessibility of the forms in ASE is like. I just don't know. I've never tested it. But we just use Gravity Forms for everything. It is quite possible it could. Especially if it's a basic contact form, try it. We just use Gravity Forms for so many things. Like, for example, there's a project that earlier this year that we finished where we have back-end forms that show up in the admin area that execute a flow of things. Like they add a new member on their site that way manually, and it does like 8 things after that because Gravity Forms has all these hooks and you can fire things off and it does a lot of things. So it would never replace Gravity Forms for us, but for a basic contact form, maybe you'd want to try it. All right. Next up is, should be Vern, but I accidentally dismissed your question. So let's go back. Vern, here we go. How are you, Vern? Is Vern here? Vern is not here. We will endeavor to answer it without him. Vern says, we have used Solid Security, formerly iTheme Security, former Better WordPress Security, on many sites for several years. One of the features to give us a tiny extra bit of security is to hide the back end. It has worked perfectly fine for years, but recently I created a brand new site and can't get it to work. All I get is a 404 page. The traditional WP admin does not work as expected. I turned on Solid Debug and looked at the code for it, and the code looks perfect. I may try uninstalling it, reinstalling it, or as this is a new development site, deleting the entire site and starting over. Okay, so Vern, for a couple of things. If you can't get into the back end, that's problematic. So what I would do first, just to get back access again, is just go into the file structure and rename the plugin. So what I will often do in this case, let me just get logged into WP Nathan in the cPanel. So we'll just bump right into the plugin content plugin. Whoops, that's the wrong one. Plugins. And here it's going to be iThemes security. Or do I not have it on here? That's weird. No, it's here. What am I missing? Oh, blindness, I suppose. Okay, so what I will generally do is just put an underscore in front because that's going to move it all the way up to the front at the top of the list. That is now effectively disabled iTheme security. So if I go here, you'll see it's not in the list. That's going to let you just go to your regular WP admin location to log in because the code that's executing the change the backend won't be there anymore because you've renamed the plugin directory. So that'll let you log in. Then you can actually go back and re-enable it. And as long as you haven't been to the plugins page yet, you can just refresh and it'll show back up. If you go to the plugins page, it's gonna show it as disabled, and then you'll just have to re-enable it. But as long as you don't go to the plugin page, you can just rename the folder and then access the site, then unrename the folder, and it's going to show up again. And at that point, you can go into Solid Security, into the settings page, and just search for hide, and you'll get to the hide the backend code. Now, bigger discussion is I would not recommend using this, and neither does Solid Security anymore. Timothy Jacobs, good friend, developer of Solid Security Pro, doesn't recommend this. It is no longer a good. It is no longer a solid strategy for WordPress security. This is a holdover from the original plugin that became iThemes Security, which was called Better WordPress Security by Chris Wegman. And he had this in there because back in the early, 8-10 years ago, security by obscurity was a thing. In other words, change your login page, change different, change your WP uploads folder to something else or WP content to something else or whatever. That's no longer an effective way. Hackers they don't care about that anymore. They can find your login page even if you obfuscate it. So this is not a very helpful way to do any kind of security, like for real security. It's just not. Now, we did this for a while because clients could never remember WP-admin or whatever. So we did the hide the backend, but just called it your domain /edit if you want to edit the site, and then it would come up. So it was really more of a redirect than anything else. But you can do that with redirection plugin. You don't have to use the hide the backend feature. So all that to say, I wouldn't even do it. Like, just get out of the mess that you've got on your hands so that you can actually access the site, and then don't use the hide the backend. That would be my recommendation. All right. Moving right along. Next question comes from Ben Bradley. Hey, Ben. Okay. Oh, this looks interesting. All right. I've had a client's competitor complete a web audit lead magnet and booked a call for next week. They are only 7 miles away from my client. I'm happy to have the meeting and just see what pains they're looking to be resolved, as their website is a bit of a mess. However, my question is around customer loyalty. I think if this is a potential client with a website rebuild, then I'm entitled to take the work. There is no non-compete clause or SEO or PPC campaign for my existing client. My client has been a great source of income to my business over recent years, so I don't want to damage the relationship. However, new business would be really beneficial. Would you take the meeting? Would you inform the client about the competitor if you wanted to work with the competitor? This is a really good question, Ben. Okay, so first of all, A very important piece of this puzzle is you have an existing client who is a good client who has been a great source of income to your business. Okay. Put yourself in the shoes of that client. Finding out after the fact that their web developer they've trusted for many years is now working for their competitor also. Would that be okay? I mean, what would you think? I I don't know about that. I have never worked for a competitor. Um, so it here's the tricky part, right? And this is one of those things about really niching down to a particular industry that I've always struggled with doing, because like, how do you handle, if people are operating in the same niche and they're competing with each other? How can you really say I'm working for you and not for your competitor when you're really working for their competitor? It's a challenge. So I would either say, no, I'm sorry, I'm working for your competitor, or go to your competitor and say, this person has contacted me as to design their website. Um, how do you feel about that? I would not proceed without the blessing of my current long-term good client. Now, if this was a client who was a terrible client and they were a pain in your butt, right? Then it would be a little bit of a different discussion, I think. Um, yeah. I'm scrolling back up through the chat here. And that's a good question from Paul. Are they really competitors? Okay, so story time. Years ago, I was doing a bunch of work for different car washes. I just fell into that little group of people. We had a bunch of several car wash sites. Um, and we had a car wash on the other side of town. I live in a city with a metro area that's about 1.5 million people. So it's not a small area. And so we had somebody on the other side of town, also a car wash, reach out. And so I did exactly what I recommended you to do. I contacted my really good client that had been with me a long time, multiple locations, like 7 different car washes at that point around the south side of the city. This car wash was on the north side of the city, probably 45 minutes away. And my client said, it's not a problem, not a problem at all for you to work with them, because although they're in the same city, they're technically not a competitor, because our business is so geographically driven. Like, people are going to go to a car wash that's right by them, not on the other side of town. So he didn't mind. So that is, that's how I handled it. And you'd really have to just, are these actual competitors, right? Oh, and Elizabeth, my brain jumped to something else, and you're right. When I talked about if it was a really bad client that you currently had, then maybe that would be different. But I would let the bad client go in order to potentially take the better client. That would be a different discussion, I think, whether or not I would do that and how that would work. So we just kind of ran around the tree here. Ben, does that make sense? Talk to your client. And honestly, what you may do is lean on your existing client for some extra work. Hey, these people have reached out to me. They're wanting to do a lot of stuff with their website. I'm not going to work with them because I work with you or whatever. So what can we do to your website? Because they're about to up their game. So how can we up your game above their game that's coming, right? So it could be a way to bring that conversation in with your really good client about getting a little more work too. Great question. Thank you for that, Ben. And if you have a great question or even a terrible one, please ask it. The link is in the chat somewhere. There we go. All right. Kristen is next. Hey, Kristen. Oh, this is a good one. Are people pitching the LLMs.txt files to their clients? I think this could be beneficial, but I don't feel confident about my understanding. I was thinking through this with a client who provides handyman services, searching ChatGPT for Oakland handyman, and I noted that it mostly looks for references on Yelp, Thumbtack, Facebook, etc., and for domains with the exact keyword match, like theoaklandhandyman.com. Would having LLMs.txt files on their website have helped? Maybe. This is the Wild West right now. I've heard people swear by these things, and I've seen people talk about it's had no result whatsoever. So, I mean, this is everything about SEO these days in the age of AI, where we are right now, is, I don't know. Nobody knows. And if any SEO person comes in and says, we know exactly how to crack this nut with AI search results, then they probably don't, right? The really legit SEOs are going, we're just trying to figure this thing out right now. Like, that's the honest take. What is LLMs.txt? So this is a file that you can put in the root of your site that's kind of like a robots.txt for search engines. It's instructions about your business from for AI crawlers. They don't have to honor them, by the way, but it's I don't know that it's even fully standardized. So it's the Wild West. It's the Wild West. So the way I would handle it with a client is to say, we think this might work for you, but it's all experimental. Everything about search right now, like legit organic search, everything about this is experimental. So why don't we try it and see the results, right? And there's a cost involved in that because we're going to be working. We certainly can't guarantee anything, not that you would with SEO anyway. But depending on the client, maybe they're willing to invest in a trial just to see how it goes, right? Kristen, does that help? How do you get the LLMs.txt file? Some SEO plugins offer that in the pro versions. Yoast does it. I'm seeing Rank Math in the chat does it. Others do it. You can also generate that. I mean, you can ask ChatGPT to generate it for you. Yeah, all-in-one SEO also does. Yeah, the major search SEO plugins are going to do this for you now. But like the actual results, who knows? Nobody knows for real. Nobody that I've seen anyway that's credible. It's all a big experiment again right now. Oh, what is in that file? That's good. Sample. And it's LLMs.txt. Let's see if we get a real. All right, here is a GitHub page. Oh, this is pretty good actually. Let's drop this in. That's a good educational article. So let's see if they're going to give us an example. Yeah. That's pretty. I've seen them a lot simpler than this. Yeah. So it's kind of like a sitemap, but it gives the LLM a little bit of context around what it's supposed to be, each of these pages, right? Yeah, definitely not a standard. Paul, similar question. When you set up Cloudflare, is there an option to prevent LLMs from going through the site? Yes. They've actually made it on by default now, which I don't like. Because I think it's a bad idea generally to block. I think it's a bad idea generally to block AI bots from your site because that's going to even block the Google AI overview potentially. I mean, it's hard to know because all of it's so opaque right now. That was not your question. When you set up Cloudflare, is there an option to prevent LLMs from going through the site? Do you ask clients about this? Okay. So yes, there is an option. Wait, wrong one. Just a minute. That's not it. Really helps for me to remember which. There it is. So it's actually in the setup process, but they've actually added this menu item here that will let you block crawlers wholesale. Has to do with the security rule. There's also a setting that they have called the AI labyrinth, which I just think is kind of funny because what it lets you do is if an AI bot comes to your site, it sends them down this endless labyrinth of generated garbage content. Yeah. So do I ask clients about this? Generally, no, unless they bring it up. I don't block AI crawlers on sites. I think that's a terrible idea right now. The only exception would be if it is a blog or a news site or something like that where they're actually they're generating money based on ad revenue for the content. In other words, we don't want to give the search engine that content, like the New York Times, right? It's going to block ChatGPT from accessing it because they're actually making money with display ads on the content. If it's just your business blog or like a local, magazine or something, they're not really, and they're not using Google Ads to generate revenue, then by all means, let the search engine crawl it because you want more people to potentially see that information, maybe click one of the reference links, find your site. It's another way to get traffic, unless you're actually making direct money from the content. Yeah. It's such a complicated thing right now. All right. Have we put that one to bed? Anybody else on that one? Am I planning a Cloudflare tutorial? It's being talked about. We'll see if we get it on the schedule. It is. The problem is, as soon as you make a Cloudflare tutorial, they change the UI again. So, yeah. All righty. Stacy with an E. And I just accidentally closed your question again. All right, Stacy. I've never set up SMTP. I'm building a new website for a client who uses Outlook, and I do not have access to their Outlook mail settings. Good. You don't want to do that. I'm looking at the plugins. There are a lot of SMTP ones. Yes. I've installed a few, and they seem that you have to pay. Yes. Any ideas on where to start? Yes. Don't use SMTP. For a few reasons. First of all, for a number of different providers, it violates their terms of service. So even paid for accounts could violate the terms of service of that email provider, which means they could shut down that email account without notice. And you obviously don't want that to happen. You'd want to, if you're going to use an actual email provider like Outlook to send the mail from the site, then you better be crystal clear that their terms of service support it. A better way to do all of this is with Postmark. There are a number of services like this. This is by far the best. Just have a transactional email service to handle this. This is what it's made for, and it is pretty darn inexpensive. So right here, this is the rack rate. $15 a month gets you 5 servers, and up to 5 by servers, that means domains, or you could even technically share a domain, a server. I don't know that I would do that. It's a very inexpensive way, and this just solves email deliverability. Yeah. So, yeah, Mailgun is a competitor to Postmark. It is also great. I think they may be now more equivalently priced. Postmark was a lot less expensive until just in the last year. Oh, and of course they have an MCP server. That's interesting. Okay, in the big picture, it's so funny. Corey and I were just talking about this the other day as one of the things to do as a technical content live stream, which is all of the alphabet soup of email authentication and how to make sure your emails land in an inbox. SMTP is just not the right way to do that. Now, there are plugins like Fluent SMTP, WP SMTP, which is now Solid Mail. Insert your favorite SMTP, and they're fine. But they like here's Solid Mail, for example, which used to be called, I think, WP SMTP, but I use it to send through Postmark. Like it's validated here with Postmark. Now you can, with most of these SMTP plugins, choose a multitude of different options through which to send the mail. So Mailgun, this was Solid Mail, Mailgun, SendGrid, Brevo, which is now something else, or it anyway. Amazon SES if you want to hate yourself forever and die. Postmark, and then just a generic SMTP, which you actually put in the, you know, email, actual legit email address information. This is the one I just wouldn't use this because there are too many risks and too many ways it could fail. It's much better to, as an agency, make a decision. We're going to use this service as the transactional email provider for all the clients that are on a care plan. And then, we over and over again, since we've been using Postmark, we've had some sort of deliverability issue, and we can go and look at the logs and see what happened. And it's great logging and so forth. So it's really, really helpful. Tanya, thank you. Brevo was Sendinblue. That's what it was. Both of them weird names. Scrolling down. Sue, is the Gravity GFSMTP add-on also a problem for email TOS? So I would not use any. Let me say this a different way. If you're going to implement a transactional email solution like Postmark or whatever, do it at the WordPress level, not at the plugin level. So, for example, Gravity Forms and other form plugins have like an SMTP plugin or a Postmark plugin or a Mailgun plugin. Don't do that at the plugin level. Do it at the WordPress level. Because if you do it at the plugin level, then sure, all your contact form email goes out through that system that you set up, but your WordPress emails don't, and they still may end up in the spam or whatever. So the WordPress level is a plugin like Solid Mail or Fluent SMTP or something like that, and basically what all these plugins do is they take over the WP Mail function. So WordPress has a function called WP Mail. I can't type. WP Mail. It's in core function, and this is at the core level. Plugins will tap into this whenever they need to send a message. So if you've got a security plugin that's sending you updates, or WooCommerce is sending order notifications or whatever, they all tap into WP Mail to do that. What these Fluent SMTP, Solid Mail, and all the other ones do is they take over WP Mail so that whenever any plugin tries to hit WP Mail to send a mail, it routes through this new thing that you've set up instead of just using the server's PHP mail system, which can often end in spam. Does that make sense? Do it at the WordPress level. Yep. I mean, it's not that these Gravity Forms or Fluent Forms, whatever based plugins don't work. They do, but they only change the way mail is sent for those form plugins, not for WordPress. So Karen, I'm not saying don't use an SMTP plugin, because, for example, Solid Mail is an SMTP plugin. It used to be called WP SMTP. I'm saying when you use a plugin to take over the transactional email for WordPress, don't use SMTP as the send method. Use one of these options like these, or whichever one you want to use. Right? Use a transactional email service to send your mail rather than SMTP. Okay. What about the Postmark plugin? It's fine. What I like about Solid Mail, and most of our sites are still using the official Postmark plugin, but we're slowly moving things over to Solid Mail. The logs are a little better. It's just a nicer plugin. Like it's just see, like get all of your questions here. We can just go back and take a look. You got a nicer way to view emails and so forth. You can also, in the Solid Mail plugin, set up a backup connection, which is kind of cool. Like we could add, for example, Mailgun and set all that up. I don't think it's going to let me save it without the data. No, it won't let me save it. But you could set it as not the default, but still active. So if your default connection has a problem, it'll fall back to one of the other methods. It's pretty cool. Is Solid SMT Solid Mail free? Yeah, it's in the plugin directory. They basically acquired WP SMTP right here, and you can still see it you can see that in the slug. They just took over. They acquired this plugin from the developer, WP SMTP, and redid the UI. The foundation of the plugin has always been good. And yep, it's just a download right there. Stacy, I won't use SMTP. However, I have a Postmark account, and I wonder if I should put them on my account or create their own. So it's a philosophical question, Stacy. And so again, for anybody that missed that, should we have a transactional email provider that we supply as an agency, or should the client have their own? And it may just depend on the client. Like if they're super techie and they want access to all that stuff, sure, that might make sense to have a separate account. But in general, we view transactional email as a component of our care plan. So it's part of the cost they pay in a care plan to have email deliverability enhancement. And so we just provide that under our umbrella, another site in the servers. Yeah. If you have some clients that are sending more than 10,000 emails a month or whatever your limit is with your provider, maybe they need their own, and that would just be an add-on. Okay. Great questions, great discussion. But let's keep things moving because it is now 10 minutes to the hour and we have 7 questions left. So let us move on. Was that helpful? I think that was a fun discussion. And it makes me, let's just quick vote in the chat. How many of you would like a live stream all about email deliverability issues? Just a yes or a no. I think it's mostly yes. Okie dokie. All right. Next is Tanya. Hey, Tanya. Tanya always brings the funny. Okay. You've asked this before, but brain cells need to be refreshed. Favorite email. Oh, what is my favorite email client for sending and receiving domain-based emails? I've been using a free Gmail account to do this, but that is going bye-bye in January. Yes. I have 6 domains, so Google Workspace would cost over $40 a month. Oh, okay. So is your question, Tanya, the actual email software or the email provider like Gmail? Do you want to replace Gmail with something else that's going to manage your emails? And as I wait on that answer, Phoebe, no, Gmail continues to be free. What they're sunsetting is the POP, the POP access, like to pull in email into a Gmail account from another email provider. You want to be able to send and receive domain-based emails. Okay, so let me show you. If you all have not seen this yet, one of the many things that hosting.com offers is, hey, look, email. Take a look at this because this is a really, really good deal. We're going to start pushing clients toward this. If they have an email need rather than Google Workspace, rather even than Zoho Mail. So look at this. $2 a month, you get 5 mailboxes with 5 gigs of space, contacts, calendars, tasks, and a scheduling app built in for $2. Well, it's $2 the first month, $4 a month. That's a pretty darn good deal. And you'll get hosting.com support and so forth. So it's good. And it kind of graduates up based on the number of mailboxes and storage space that you need. But even look here, for $12 a month for a single domain, 50 mailboxes, 50 gigs, contacts, calendar, task, scheduling, AV, chat, file storage, custom login page, and a free domain name if you want it. If you pay for the year, do you get 12 months you get half price? I don't know. This is another great reason to talk to Mike Demo. So Tanya asked, how do you view the email on a phone and desktop? You'll set it up like any other email account. Like, there'll be a server and a password and username. That it's going to give you all the credentials, and you'll set that up. Yes, like one service per client. But like, here's the beautiful thing: is just set. If you want to make money on email, I would not want to make money on email, but because I don't want to get a call if they have email problems. But you could upsell this to the client if you wanted to, or just send them over to hosting.com, and they can get support and so forth. Is Demo Mike's last name? It's Demopoulos. Mike Demopoulos. So yes, Demo is an abbreviated version of his last name. Tanya, could I use my Gmail account to? No, this would replace Gmail. So what you would do is make DNS changes to your MX records that push your email to hosting.com's email service rather than Gmail. Does hosting.com have affiliates? Yes, you can 100% sign up as an affiliate, and the link is in the footer right here. There you go. So many things. So I have not tried this email yet. I've had a long conversation with Mike Demo about it, and he's played with it and assures me it's wonderful. So I trust his opinion. Sue, that's a great idea. Tools that agencies want, not just web, or not just during office hours. Billy, do you have to have a hosting account? No, you do not. This is a standalone product. Great question. So what you can do, if you have questions, just go to hosting.com, click chat with us, and hey, look, there's a chat bot, and you can ask, just do technical support, ask technical questions about it and how you'd set it up. Just have a nice little chat with the nice person on the other end of the chat bot, and if there is a human there, yeah. All right. Next up is Paul. We're going to increase the speed here a little bit. Oh, the follow-up from last week. Okay. So last week we talked about this soullanguage.us where some people could get to it and some people couldn't. Y'all remember that one? Like it was geographically oriented. It turns out that once upon a time the site was hacked. Oh, go figure. It was blocked by some malware monitoring sites, and although the list got cleared, there was one site that never got updated. Boo. Some ISPs like Comcast were still following the ancient report of the hack. So you reached out to them and it's getting resolved. How about that? I would not have thought that was the solution. Isn't that interesting? Thank you, Paul. So weird. All right, next up is Doug. Doug, are you here? Hey, Doug. What are you using in your agency sites for plugin security? I'm looking to change my plugin stack. The features I'm looking for are plugin vulnerabilities, firewall rules, malware detection, and an IP block list. Do I need anything else in a security plugin? Okay, man. All right, I've only got a few minutes left here, and this is a soapbox question. So I will endeavor not to rise up too high on my soapbox about WordPress security plugins. I've talked about it to some degree. Even recently in the Hosting Blueprint live stream. But here's the thing. There are certain things in this list that I do not believe philosophically belong in a WordPress security plugin. The most efficient way, for example, of blocking bad IP addresses is not in a WordPress plugin, it's at the network level, right? So Cloudflare, for example, or whatever you want to put at the network level is the best way to do that. Or even let your host have let them manage that firewall of bad IP addresses or bad user agents, that sort of thing. And even, okay, malware detection. That is also something that should not be in a WordPress plugin. Here's the reason. Two reasons. First of all, running a file level malware scan from a WordPress plugin is incredibly slow. It's resource intensive. It's a plugin executing a file scan is very resource intensive because it's running in the WordPress application layer. So it slows down. And so Beth is mentioning WordFence. WordFence has that reputation for slowing things down because it's doing a file level scan in the WordPress application layer. Now, you should have a file level scan, but it needs to be at the server level, not the WordPress application level. So, if you're hosting with hosting.com, all of the VPS and VDS servers have built into it Immunify 360, which is a ongoing scheduled malware scanner that checks out every file as it comes in. So, and Melanie is mentioning like malware, blog vault, those sorts of things. You got to be careful with how they're doing it because if they're coming in, if their access is through a WordPress plugin, they're still doing it in the application layer. So there's a performance issue there, but also, and this is even more important, the more modern malware, because that scanner is operating in the WordPress application layer, malware can come in, it's running in the same layer, it can change the results and make that scanner say nothing's wrong here, nothing to report here, when actually you got a gob of malware running. So so just make whatever malware scanner you're using does not need to be happening in the WordPress application layer. It needs to be happening in the server, right? So Doug, you say you've got Immunify 360. Awesome. It's a great product. And so just remove malware detection from something that you want your plugin to do. Now, what should it be doing? Plugin vulnerabilities is a good one, right? And by this, I mean watching the blacklist or the list of WordPress plugins where there's vulnerabilities, right? So watching those and letting you know proactively, hey, this plugin has a vulnerability, and letting you know that. What's even better is if they'll offer virtual patching through PatchStack. So this is super helpful because PatchStack is one of the it may be still the leading CVE reporting group in the world. They were at one time, but they're certainly in the WordPress space. But the bottom line is they see those issues, and the ones that are serious, they create a virtual patch which prevents that vulnerability from being executed, even if the plugin hasn't been updated yet. So having this feature, very important. And the other thing I would look at is user security, login security. And that would be a few things like making sure that the username password combination isn't used in a breach somewhere, like they tap into have I been pwned or something like that. Also offering login validations like two-factor, like passkeys, those sorts of things, right? So protecting the WordPress user login experience. These are really the things I would look for in a WordPress security plugin. Yeah. So does that help? That was a big answer, but it's a big question. Just make sure whatever WordPress plugin, and this, by the way, this is why I keep using Solid Security, because I think Solid Security is the best WordPress security plugin. It does exactly what a WordPress security plugin ought to do. Yeah. So if anybody else has recommendations, just drop those in the chat. I don't have another recommendation. Let me go ahead and keep moving, though, for see if we can get through all these questions in our time. Class is next. Hey, Class. Oh, boy. Let's see if we can get through this. Custom wording in a membership plugin. Building a site for a client who we're currently using Paid Memberships Pro. It's great. I like it. It's one I use. to sell content packages, which is film access plus group study materials. Okay. The free version has all the functionality we need except for the verbiage on checkout confirmation membership pages. All those pages refer to membership in many ways. The client is selling packages with a one-time fee, so you don't want to call it, yeah. ChatGPT started replacing the wording, but just replace membership with package. You'll generate some very odd sentences. Yep. So that works. So does one of the paid versions of PMP allow customization of text on the checkout confirmation membership pages, or is there an alternative? Great question. So everything in Paid Membership Pro is translatable, or you can change it in a hook. And ChatGPT is really good with PMP. We did some really nifty customizations of PMP in a recent project. So you should be able to do that just with translations and with hooks, PHP hooks. Worst comes to worst, you could just run JavaScript on that page to update the text. That's the last choice. But what I would suggest is a membership plugin. You really only need a membership plugin for two reasons. First is content protection, which you need this for. Second is recurring fees, right? So is this a one-time paid for access class? I think you said it was, right? One-time fee, yeah. So this might be a great use case for FluentCart, for example. It should, I believe it does content protection. It includes all of that. So take a look at that. Oh, you're using it for content protection. So did you know that a single about, I don't know, 20 line PHP script can do your content protection for you? So for example, in this site I was just describing, rather than go through all these pages and lock it down with per page paid memberships pro settings, what we did was with the URL structure, because everything under domain.com/this word, everything past that needs to be protected. So with a very simple PHP statement, we just said, if you're not logged in with these roles, then redirect to this page. Boom. That was it. That was content protection. That's all we needed. So look really, it may be that you have too large of a solution for what you really need. You really just need to, what you might consider is, you could even do this with WooCommerce free, is on the purchase of this product, assign a role to the customer that bought that product. And based on that role, they have access to the URL structure that contains the product. So that's another way to do it. But yes, you can use PMP and just update. In the free version, I'm not sure, but you can definitely do it with hooks and or with translate. Okay, very large answer again. Does that help, class? You have a couple of ways you could go. My guess is playing around with this for a little bit, you could probably get rid of PMP altogether. All right. Next is Beth. So regarding redirects, we started and launched a website today in Bavaro, and very soon after pivoted, this is a place, pivoted to now in puntacana.com. Okay. And I have redirected all pages to the new site using redirection. If people click on a link to a page on Today in Bavaro and get redirected, does it show in analytics on both sites or just the final one? It should show in analytics on both sites, because the traffic is coming into one site. So the traffic is there, and then it's getting redirected to the other site, which should also show the traffic. Unless there's a piece of this I'm missing, that it should show up in both. All right, rolling right along here. 2 more questions. We'll get these done and call it a day. Bonnie says, please post the link to where you post your office hours recordings. I'll go re-listen to your answers to icons from last week. All righty. So the link is now in the chat, and you will find one of those links is office hours replays. It is right here. officehours.myagencysuccess.com. That is going to redirect you to the playlist on YouTube in which these office hours live. So there you go. And the final question of the day is from Melanie. Hey, Melanie. Oh, yeah. An update on this one we talked about a few weeks ago. Okay, Melanie had this project about a car loaning program. I work with Gravity Wiz and their new booking add-on to Gravity Forms. I was planning on using it with Gravity View. The only catch is that you can't add days in front or in back of the booking. You had to cancel the booking and rebook. Ugh. The features are excellent. I found a few bugs and reported. I ended up building it in Airtable. That's interesting. I can prevent double booking and create many types of views. Zapier to keep the content synced. That's fun. That sounds like a really fun project. So congratulations on that. All right, everybody, that wraps it up for us today. Thanks for wonderful questions, as always. I think we got in a rabbit hole on some of those, but it was a fun discussion. So let's see. Next week. Oh, I will be out of the office next week, but we will still have office hours, pending no weird technical things from, I'll be broadcasting from a remote, undisclosed location next week, but hopefully all the tech will work out. And so we still intend on having office hours next week. So yeah, what could possibly go wrong? I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I hope you do no work at all and you just get to enjoy some beautiful weather, friends and family. And I will see you back here on Thursday for office hours here on hosting.com's Agency Success, where we go further together.